you love to travel? Do you love to talk about travel? Me too. I got you. Travel is an amazing way to experience new places. Wellness is being physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy. This Sweet Dreams Wellness Travel podcast is all about exploring wellness travel. I'm Barbara Tuckett, your host and the owner of Sweet Dreams Travel. Part of our emotional and mental health is connection. And I believe that traveling with the intention to connect can bring wellness to your life. In this podcast, I explore traveling for connection with places, with experiences, with those you travel with, and with those you meet, especially connection with yourself. I want your travel to improve your wellness. Hello, friend. Happy summer. I hope your summer is going great. Mine is good, especially with the topic I'm going to cover today. I'm glad that that's in the rearview mirror as far as I'm concerned. So our topic today, I'm going to look over and share my screen. So as you can see, our topic today is big family reunion, shoestring budget, no problem. Here's how to pull together a fantastic family reunion. This background picture that you can see is a lot of my family at a family reunion. The reason that I decided to do this as a topic is that I just barely finished planning and executing 2 family reunions that I was in charge of. My husband and I were in charge of this summer for his family and my family, and within a month's time. His was first, and then my family's was just a month later. And they were in 2 different locations, and so we couldn't really just duplicate. You would think, oh, you can just do the exact same things, but not really, not so much. So essentially, we planned 2 different family reunions for 2 different families within a month's period of time. So because I just finished planning and hosting 2 different family reunions, this is a big deal trying to pull this all together. And so that's why I decided I'm just going to share some of what I learned along the way and give you all the details of what we did for our 2 family reunions. And then hopefully that'll help you get some ideas. And if you have a family reunion planning experience coming up in your future, then hopefully you will start with a little bit more of a, heads up. So it can be super stressful to plan a reunion for your whole family. Sean's family, we were planning for about 30 people, and in my family, we were planning for 65. So Sean's from a family, he's one of 6 kids, and I am one of 11 kids, and we're both on the older ends of our families. And so we have lots of, not only our own siblings and parents, but lots of nieces and nephews. And anyway, has even started into the next generation with some of our siblings, our grandparents. So anyway, it's a lot of people to plan for, and it's a big deal. So happy to share this with you, and hopefully you can get a little bit of help from it. All right. So just to start off, my background as a travel advisor definitely helps. Like, no question, this has been a huge help in planning these family reunions. I have helped so many families and extended families, multi-generational families with trips over the years. Like, I do that all the time. That is like a big thing for me. And so I'm used to thinking about like all the little details and how to kind of help plan for groups of people. But the biggest difference is when I'm planning for a multi-gen trip for people versus planning these family reunions. A family trip, if you are deciding to go on a family trip, then you usually have some kind of a budget. You say, oh yeah, hopefully we can keep it, to this, between this and this amount or whatever. You kind of got an idea in mind of how much you have budgeted. But with these family reunions that I had to work with, they didn't really have much of a budget. Everybody just wanted to spend as little as possible. So anyway, I have put together 4 big tips, which we're going to kind of expand on, and I'm going to give you all the details to help as you are putting together your next family reunion on a shoestring budget. Okay, so tip number 1 is know your people. So this might seem really like a dumb kind of piece of advice because obviously you know how old people are and like they're your family, right? So you kind of know that, you know your people. But what I am referring to specifically is like think about the abilities of people and according to the ages and the interests and things like that. So in our two families, we had a combination of like parents that are a little bit older and slower than they used to be when they were younger. We had a brand new baby on one side. On each side, both on my side and on Sean's side, we have a wheelchair bound person. And so that makes for, a little bit of a, what are we going to do about that? We also have active teens, we have young adults, we have adults, all different levels of interests and ages and all the things. So that's part of what makes it so tricky to plan a reunion is trying to hit all of the things, all of the boxes. So what I decided to do is just provide a variety of experiences. So some were less adventurous and some were more adventurous. Of course, the less adventurous ones were with the people, the wheelchair bound people or the slower people in mind. And the more adventurous ones, obviously not everybody could do. And so that's also another consideration. What do people do if you're not going on the more adventurous type of trip? What do you do while everybody else is on that trip? So it is all like a big, I was going to say mess, but it's not a mess. It's just a lot. It's just a lot to think about and to try to plan for. So think about like kind of start with knowing your people and kind of what you're working with. And then I would say plan a variety of things to kind of hit different interests and abilities. Okay. Tip number 2, we're going to spend the most time on this. The tip is think outside the box for accommodations and activities. All right. So the number of people that you have is definitely a factor, and that is going to, for sure, kind of help dictate what your reunion looks like. So my suggestions for accommodations on a budget. To start off with, we were going to go with Sean's family. We were going to go to California and we were going to get a beach house. We were going to rent an individual condo for each family, depending on their family size. And it was going to be just amazing. I was so excited about it. And then we started to get, feedback on that was too much money. That wasn't going to work for everybody because they didn't want to spend that kind of money. So we pivoted and we decided to go instead closer to home. And so we just decided to do it in the hometown where his parents live. None of the siblings grew up there. His parents have moved there since everybody, has grown up. But we decided to just have the reunion there. And we said, okay, this is home base, is the town where Sean's parents live. And so people then had their own just prerogative. They could either, get in their word first and say, oh, we're going to stay with mom and dad, or we're going to get, like a house rental or a hotel or something like that. We're going to figure out. And so basically with Sean's family, we kind of just washed our hands of the whole where you're going to stay kind of thing. And we just said, get your own accommodations. And so everybody did. And they were able to pay more, pay less, share whatever to make it all work. And so that's what we did to get around the accommodations with his side. And this top picture that you can see right here, this white house that's covered with it's got a white picket fence in front of it and covered with trees all over the property. This is the little house that we rented to stay in. And it was great for us and our kids and their spouses. And it just accommodated everybody. So it was great for us. And the rest of his siblings and people in the family stayed wherever they stayed. So it was good. It was a good way to get around like thinking outside the box with accommodations and not requiring everybody to pay the same amount of money. Okay, on my side, this is also a pivot kind of experience. Originally, I found and reserved this it was a big old church that had been converted into a rental property, and they could sleep 75 people, and they had all these individual rooms, because a lot of the smaller classrooms, I guess that used to be classrooms, had been converted into bedrooms. And anyway, just lots of bathrooms, big rec space, it was going to be amazing, but it was also very expensive. And so we were looking for something, people would have done it if that had been the only option, but we were looking for something that would be less expensive. And so eventually came up a property, and I booked a property it was a lodge that is normally used by youth groups. It was a church-owned lodge, and it slept a lot of people, like it would sleep up to 150 people or whatever. But the accommodations weren't as nice. It was super cheap. It was about a tenth of the price that the original place would have been. So way cheaper. We totally got a great deal on it, but we had to share, bunk beds with other people in other families and things like that. And so it definitely wasn't as nice as that original place would have been, and not as private. And so, we kind of had to do some scrambling with like people with little kids who needed to take naps and things like that, with who they were sharing rooms with and all of that. So it definitely was kind of a workaround, but the price was way, way better. And so I would suggest for accommodations, if you're looking for really inexpensive accommodations, do maybe something like what we found for our two groups. So either have everybody get theirs on their own, name a spot and have everybody get their own, or find a really inexpensive, like either owned by the Boy Scouts or a church group or something like that, a place like that. Now, of course, you could go camping as well, but my family, we had a lot of people that were coming in from out of state, and even the people in state don't have trailers and camping equipment and stuff. Not everybody could do that. And so we weren't able to do like a campground, but other families, I know that's how they get around the high cost of accommodations, is they'll go camping. So anyway, just be flexible and think outside the box with your accommodations. For activities on a budget, I would say, well, what I did, I started and I just did a ton of Google searches, and I just looked up, okay, what to do here, what to do there. I knew that I wanted at least one water activity, whether it was, a lake or a river or something like that with each group, because we were in the summer and it would just be fun to do something near or at the water. And so I searched for boat rentals for different to take boats to different lakes, or I searched for all kinds of things just in the areas where we were going to be. And I spent a lot of time doing searches and just trying to come up with activity ideas and things that we could do with a big group. Because that's the other thing, if you're planning for 65 people, where do you take 65 people that is not going to completely overwhelm them? Like what kinds of activities can you do? So I feel like we came up with some pretty good options, and that's what I'm going to show you on the next couple of slides. So the first one is, because it was first, was some of the activities and things we did with Sean's family. Okay. So one thing we did was we did a walk/hike. We called it a hike, but it really wasn't like hiking uphill necessarily very much. It was a little bit of uphill, but it was to get to a waterfall. And at the waterfall, you could, slide down it. You could scoot down it. And it was very fun. The hike wasn't steep. Of course, the wheelchair person couldn't go, or people with mobility issues, they could not go on that hike. So that was one activity that they couldn't do, but it was really fun to do on a hot day and fun to get to the waterfall, and everybody had a great time. We just took our lunches and ate our lunches along the way. So that was one activity that we did. Another thing we did was we started at the top of a mountain and we rode bikes on a bike trail down. So we didn't want the bikes to be like just on the side of the road or whatever. We didn't want to have to deal with traffic, but there was a bike trail that comes all the way down the mountain. And so we just, took all the bikes up to the top and got on the bikes and just started biking down. And those with mobility challenges were able to go on four-wheelers, and they went on four-wheel drive rides on side-by-sides, that kind of thing. So, and then we planned a day of playing at the lake. So that we decided not to rent a boat or anything. We just brought things like paddle boards or kayaks or other, floaties or different things like that to just play in the water at the lake. Anybody who wanted to could also go fishing that day. nearby if they would rather turn it into kind of more of a fishing day. So we just kind of had a water day, but that lake playing day ended up changing because there were really some high winds. And so it just wasn't like, it was just too windy. Once you got in the water, then it would be so windy and couldn't keep the paddle boards or the kayaks out very easily because they would just keep blowing away. So we ended up not going to the lake on that day, and we pivoted and we just went to a calm section of a local river and kind of just floated down a few times. So we took the same paddle boards and kayaks and things that we had and just kind of floated down the river. It was really pretty calm. You kind of had to paddle yourself along some of the times as you were going down the river because there wasn't a huge current. But anyway, so that's what we ended up doing that day instead. We also did lots of eating together with some, breakfast, hearty breakfast that we would do together as family, and then some self-packed lunches. So everybody was just supposed to bring their own lunch stuff and put together lunches because we were just going to kind of have lunches on the go. And then lots of times in the evenings, we would, grill hamburgers or have hot dogs or have s'mores or have, just easy things that we had done in crock pots or whatever and pulled out. So that was kind of, oh, and then we also had, because home base, quote unquote, was Sean's parents' house, we had a bunch of backyard games that were set up just always there in the backyard. So anytime that we were there hanging out, there were always these backyard games that were available that people could just play anytime they wanted. So that was a good thing to have those games sitting out. So that was kind of just a synopsis of the things we ended up doing for Sean's family reunion. Then for my family reunion, we started off our first meal, we went to lunch at Leatherby's. And Leatherby's is, if you are in the Salt Lake area, you probably know Leatherby's. It's like this local ice cream shop, but they also have food there. And so we just thought that would be a fun way to kind of kick off our family reunion. And so we all met there and everybody just ordered their own stuff and had their own lunch there. And that was very fun. Another thing that we did is decorate white bandanas with teammates. So before the reunion, I had divided everybody into groups. I had put them into teams, and they didn't, like, we weren't stuck in teams the whole time or anything, but it was just for some of the things that we were doing. And I made sure I separated the spouses, I separated siblings from each other. Like, I really just wanted a good mix of people in your group. And so at the very first dinner that we had together, I passed out all the bandanas, and everybody just decorated their own bandanas with marker, paint, fabric. That's what I was looking for. Fabric markers or fabric paints. And basically the teams could decide whatever they wanted to do. They could put their individual names on them. They could decide a team name and decorate them all the same or a little bit different or whatever they wanted to do. So that was really a fun team building kind of activity. Didn't cost a whole lot. I just got the white bandanas from Hobby Lobby. I did wash them ahead of time so that they would be ready to go. And then I had to iron all of them because they're all probably 100% cotton or whatever. So they got all scrunched up after I washed them. So that took a long time, but that was a fun activity to kind of, introduce who the teams were and get them kind of already starting to bond. Other activities, we went floating down the Weber River on tubes. I rented the tubes from Weber State University. They have these outdoor equipment rentals that you can rent from, and they're pretty cheap. And so I just rented a whole bunch of tubes. We went and got them that morning, and we had them for, a full, until the next day, but we just turned them in that night. No, we didn't. We were going to turn them in that night, but we used them too late. So we turned them in the next morning before we started on our next activities. So anyway, the tubes come with pumps to blow them up and everything. And it was just, it worked out great to float down the Weber River on tubes. Then one of the team activities we did is we did a scavenger hunt in our teams. And I chose to do that on the BYU campus. I thought it would be fun to do it on a campus. It could have been anywhere, of course, but I thought it would be fun to do a campus because it's, very walkable and very easy for wheelchairs or people who have mobility issues. There's not a lot of, it's not like curbs to go up and down if you're walking around a town or a city or something. Also, bonus tip, if you visit a campus on Saturday, then you don't have to worry about their assigned parking. So that was kind of nice. So, and the scavenger hunt was pretty fun. We also rode the Heber Valley Railroad together. And of course, that is not a super adventurous type of activity, but it is one that every single person can do. Another thing we did, part of our reunion with my family was on Sunday. And so I really kind of wanted some Sunday activities we could do. At the lodge where we were staying, there was not like a big open grassy area or anything. It was kind of in the mountains, and just all there were just trees and forest. And I mean, it was great for that, but there wasn't a big grassy area where we could play games. So originally I had thought, oh, let's do some, like Olympic type games with our teams, or, do some outdoor type stuff, but there really wasn't a space for that. And so luckily the lodge we were staying in had this huge, big gathering space. And so we played a bunch of minute to win it games and all of that with our teams. And on the Sunday afternoon, that was really fun. That was great. Then we also, at the end of the games, I assigned each team that they had to make up a skit. They had to use every person in their game, and I had given them some props. Ahead of time, I had told each family that one of the things they needed to do was bring 6 different props for a skit. And so I had a variety of props, and we just mixed them all up and handed them out. And that was the assignment. Make up a skit and use all your props and all your people. And so anyway, that was really fun, because that night then everybody put on the skits for each other, and that was a fun thing. We also, at Sean's family reunion, we had the yard games out all the time, but at mine, we basically were inside more than we were outside. And so, especially on this Sunday, but we set up a craft table. And so we just kind of had an ongoing craft table. It was great to keep the kids and some of the adults busy, and just anybody who wanted to do the crafts there. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Sean's family reunion and what my family reunion looked like. Kind of some of the same elements, but totally different. It looked totally different. So tip number 3. So that was all in tip number 2 for activities and accommodations. Tip number 3, my biggest tip is with number 3, I feel like it's so hard when you feel like if you're in charge of it, if you feel like you have to do everything yourself. And so, of course, use your own family members as much as possible. One example is for our river floating that we did with my family. I had asked my oldest daughter and my son-in-law if they would be at the very beginning of the group, so that they could be there to help get people out of the river when it was time to get out, to make sure that people didn't keep floating on by and, get into any trouble that way, since we're all just floating in tubes. And so they stood there, they got the get out place first, and they stood there and they helped pull people off. So something like that was a huge help, because I knew that my husband and I wanted to be kind of at the end of the group, making sure that everybody got on okay, that their tubes were all pumped up, and that, nobody got left behind or had any issues. And so I couldn't be in both places at once. And so it was really great to assign that out, and to just know that, okay, as people get off the river, they're being taken care of. Those types of things. Also, with meals, my biggest tip, my recommendation would be assign out the meals, if at all possible. So one of the biggest helps with my side of the family reunions, is that whoever's in charge plans the reunion, but then part of planning the reunion is they assign out the meals. So they'll say, okay, these 2 couples, or these 2 families, or this family, either 1 or 2 families, whatever, however it works out. You're in charge of breakfast on Thursday, and these other people, you're in charge of lunch on Friday, or whatever. And so then those people are just in charge of getting the food and everything. I got all of the paper products, so that nobody getting food had to worry about that. But I had all the paper products ready and everything. And so it just worked out really nicely that I didn't have to plan all of the meals, because that would have been like 10 times more stressful. But to just be able to just have, if we're in the middle of an activity and I know that somebody else is working on dinner for that night or whatever, then I don't have to worry about it. So it works out great. And then with my family, everybody just pools their receipts. Everybody just turned in their receipts to me or texted them to me. And I figured out the cost of everything and just divided it all up by per person and said, okay, this is how much your family owes. This is how much your family owes. You've spent this much on food, so you only owe this much or whatever. And so that's kind of how we do it with my family. With Sean's family, it's a little different. There's not like that. My family's been doing these reunions for years. And so we've got this, really nice system worked out for meals and that type of thing. For Sean's family, this is a newer endeavor. And so we don't have any one system worked out. But with his family, we more did it of if somebody was in charge of the main dish, then we would just have other people bring sides or desserts or drinks or that type of thing so that there still is help. So however it works best to do in your family, especially with meals, I would say get help, get help, get help, get help. And this picture of this little guy in the kitchen is probably not the exact kind of help that we are thinking of when we say get help, but really get other people to help you out and support you as much as possible. Don't try to do everything on your own. Also, think of the other types of jobs that can be assigned out, whether it's, kitchen duty as far as like cleaning up or, getting things set up. What about cleanup for the place, wherever you're staying or whatever you're doing? Any other tasks or jobs that you might think of that go with your reunion that you can assign out, get people's help as much as possible so that you don't feel like you have to do everything yourself. Okay. So that is tip number 3. One more tip. The last tip is have a no expectations attitude. I know this is easier said than done. I know it is, because if you're the one in charge, you're carrying around a lot of stress and you really want everything to go perfect and you want it to go great and you don't want any mishaps and you want everybody to be perfectly happy and all the things. But in my opinion, I feel like the lower expectation you can have going into it once you're actually executing everything, the better the experience you'll have, because you will just be able to enjoy it more and not be sitting around thinking, oh, I hope this goes okay. Oh, this is my expectation, and having a really high expectation for yourself that may or may not be what the reality is. So the goal, remember your goal. The goal is to get together, create connections and memories. That's it. That's what it is. It's to have fun. It's to get together, connecting, making memories together. So once you have planned and prepared, try not to stress. Like really, if you've done everything you can and you've delegated what you can and you are just ready to go, just jump in and go and really try not to stress about it. Just remember, you'll have great stories to tell no matter what happens. So if it turns out great, it'll be so fun to look back and be like, that was so awesome that everything turned out the way we planned it. But if things go wrong, which things probably will go a little bit different than what you planned them, those will also be some great stories to remember and to think about when you are done. So the expectation is just being together. So remember that. Try to enjoy your journey. And remember, everything will work out in the end. This too shall pass. And then you can, learn from it and grow from it and move on to the next one, the next reunion or the next whatever is coming next. So those are my 4 tips. And hopefully this has been a little bit helpful if you are in the middle of planning a reunion or you know that you have one coming up on your horizon. But if you would like more details or more info, reach out. I would really be happy to chat with you. I know I didn't go through like all of the nitty-gritty. I didn't go through, I could have talked for hours and hours about it, everything. I just kind of gave you a high overview of the activities that we did, but I would be more than happy to be a resource for you for helping plan a family reunion, maybe help remove some of the stress or the tasks that you have from your plate. I have helped people, even if there's nothing, like if I'm just helping book things for you, activities or different things like that, even if there is, nothing vested in it for me, I can charge you just like an hourly rate and help research and help you plan if you would like to take some of that off your plate. I'd be more than happy to help with that. So feel free to contact me if you want some pointers or tips or more details. So my email, of course, is Barbara at Sweet Dreams Travel. Remember, it's spelled like a hotel suite. So it's SUITE, dreamstravel.net. Feel free to send me an email and reach out. Let me know if you would like more information. So thanks for joining me. It's been fun talking to you about these reunions, and I've had a really fun time doing this episode because it's kind of helped me relive and remember all of the fun memories and the things that we got to do. So good luck with planning. If you are planning a reunion, good luck. I feel for you, but it's going to be great. And thanks. We'll talk to you later. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I would invite you to like, share, or leave a review. Let's help grow our wellness travel community.